Steve, I was really interested when I saw the piece you submitted for the Space for Maybe. Um, well, first of all, because it was such a shocking change from your most recent series that you finished. And, I really know you for that series and the one previously, the superposition series. And that's really the work about, from you that I know. So I think of you as this amazing oil painter with these really interesting ideas, in play. And when I saw that sculpture, I just said, I've got to know the story.
Yeah.
So let's hear it.
Yeah. So I think to best answer it, I'd have to give a little bit of backstory of where I've been to kind of illustrate that change. Um, so yeah. So what I recently finished was pretty much my biggest creative undertaking, but also creative achievement, which was my New Eden series, which is a large scale oil painting series, figurative. Um, and so my two, what takes up most of my brain time, I would say, is that which fascinates me in the domains of science and religion. And the superposition series was definitely heavy with the science and ideas in science. And so I kind of wanted to tackle my interest in religion. So religions. So yeah, developed the New Eden series. It took me 2 years, nearly to the day, to complete, which was exactly what my production schedule, my self-imposed schedule, was shooting for. So that worked out. Uh,
Congratulations on that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. It's just there's so much unknown and just chaos that is a part and parcel of the art making process,
For
and
sure.
I it depends, like, on the artist, like the way that I work and like what I'm trying to talk about, and just the style, like technically, of the work. it's it doesn't There's always going to be an element of the unknown with the work, and something that could pop in at any moment. But with that type of work, you have to kind of limit that up front, at least for me.
Mm-hmm.
So like developing a brief and a thesis and a production schedule kind of minimizes the element of the unknown, but that still is very much a part of it. Um, so anyway, so I finished that series, and was really proud of where I went with that, and with it came just an immense amount of time put into just research and understanding who these characters really are. Not only, of course, for personal reasons, and just trying to just increase my education in general, which is, to me, is like the true core of doing any creative project, is like, what am I going to be learning throughout the process? And like the art is kind of like the vehicle that I do it through, but the real purpose is education. um, so yeah, after I was done with that, I kind of wanted to go in a little bit of a different direction. I kind of tackled the major mythologies and religions with the first series, and I definitely wasn't finished with that. And I kind of wanted to delve into not necessarily more obscure, but not like the axial age religions.
Mm-hmm.
So, or at least exclusively. So I wanted to kind of do Native American mythology,
Mm-hmm.
Nordic mythology, or Norse mythology. Go back to like Hinduism and Greek mythology, and a little bit of Christianity too. So the first installment of this new series was still very much in line with the religious theme, but a little bit more directly in that, I'm not sure if anyone from Fountain Street would have seen it, but it's a Byzantine style Christian icon with the Virgin and Child.
Oh yeah. I haven't seen the actual painting, but I've seen it on your website. The
Yeah.
Narcissus.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was the first installment of that series. And so the New Eden series was mirrors in the place of where the face would normally
Yeah.
be rendered. So the idea was to um, put the viewer's face in the faces of these holy icons, and the idea was our characters, and the idea was to basically prod the question of, as we migrate away slowly, but we are away from these traditional religions and go more into the 21st century, to the digital age, what is our relationship to these characters? They were obviously born out of um, cultures in the past, but those cultures are still very much connected to us. And so how do we understand them as we move away from them? And so the way to do that was to use mirrors and have the viewer literally their face inside the painting.
I love those. You posted at least one that I can remember on Instagram, a photo of that there was you with your iPhone in the middle of the mirror and then the painting, and I
Yeah,
just loved that. I thought that was really cool. Um, all, not just because it was you, but also because the phone was there taking the picture, because
right.
in a way that that world is for some people like a religion in a way. So that's why it really it sort of expanded on the theme a little for me when I
Perfect.
saw
Yeah,
that.
that's beautiful, because that's dead on with where I'm going with this new series. So I love, I've used mirrors for a really long time
Hmm.
in my work, and I just really um, I like aesthetically the way that they look within an oil painting. I think it's really cool. Um, it
It
adds
is.
motion and dynamism to it, because as the viewer obviously moves around the room, what's being reflected in it is moving too. So there is this element of motion. So I wanted to keep the use of mirrors, but I also wanted to keep um, stay in line with the more the realist approach to oil painting, the
Hmm.
very tight way of working. So it was like, all right, well, I did the New Eden series. I can't do that exactly again, and I don't want to. I want to expand this, but I still want to do realism painting and some sculpture, but and use the mirrors. So what can I do here? So the idea with this new series was, um, well, I'll explain the Virgin and Child, because that kind of segues into why I made the transition.
Okay.
Um, so that's the Virgin and Child painting. So basically, that's a Byzantine icon modeled after a 15th century Giotto painting, and I replaced the background instead of the face with a mirror, and then rendered the face without any features. So the idea is the characters literally lose their identity. Um, we have all the recognizable forms: the child, the mother, the
Right.
drapery, everything is recognizable, but the features are lost, so the
Right.
identity is lost. But the identity of the viewer is directly reflected in the background. So
Right.
this to me was one of my most successful pieces, because it 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 makes even the most uninterested viewer still a successful piece of the art. So the idea is, on average, 3 seconds in a museum or a gallery people spend in front of a piece of art. So people would say, well, that's a miss. Unless somebody's, if I put a piece of work on the wall and somebody only spends 3 seconds at best in front of it, that's a miss. They didn't engage with it. It didn't
Right.
speak to them. So I wanted to make, for those interactions, a kind of performance art. So when you interact with the Virgin and Child painting, if you're interested in it, you're going to look at the painting itself. You can't help but see yourself reflected in it, but you're also kind of embracing it as a whole. But even if you're not attracted to the painting itself, it's very difficult for a viewer to pass it and not at least engage momentarily with themselves in the mirror, even if they're uninterested in the painting or the concept or anything.
I
So
love that. I love that. Excuse me, but I love that inclusive kind of. It's almost, it you can't not interact with it. Do you know
yeah,
what I'm saying? You just can't not interact with it, and I love that element.
exactly. Like, so even if you're uninterested, you're still kind of interacting with it.
Yeah,
And the piece is titled Narcissus, which is named after in Byzantine iconography. There's, I mean, there's so many symbolic devices used in Christian
certainly.
art, of course.
Yes.
But I wanted to, in keeping with the theme, I used the Narcissus flower, which in
Correct.
Christian art is that represents just self an occupation or preoccupation with the self and self-interest and
Yeah.
basically narcissism. So
We all
the
know
idea,
that word.
yeah, for sure.
It's been in the news a lot.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh my God, yeah. So the idea with that was in the digital age, in the age of social media, in the 21st century, we're moving towards a culture that is increasingly more narcissistic. They're increasingly more preoccupied with the self. I mean, just all you have to do is go on social media, any social media, for 2 seconds, just to see that trend in action. And so the title's Narcissus. The flower is kind of symbolizes that in Christian art, and the person who engages with the work, who ignores the work but pays attention to themselves reflected in the mirror, has this narcissistic sort of engagement. So actually the viewer who's least engaged becomes a piece of performance art, basically. So
That's
everybody
just,
that sees it is a hit for the
that
piece.
is brilliant.
Yeah.
It
So
is really brilliant.
yeah, it was really fun, and like yeah, it was really successful, and I was super happy with that sort of the concept and how it played out. So that was kind of the idea, the jumping off point for the series with that. And then I kind of I don't really know why I decided to. I just kind of wanted to branch. I mean, I had been doing a particular type of painting for a couple of years in a very focused way, and I kind of wanted to do something that I was completely out of the box for me. And like sculpture, literally never once in my life had no idea what I was doing or how to do it. And
Well, that's what I was wondering about. Like, what do you have for sculptural experience? Do you have that experience? And then what, like I was really interested in this story. What made you jump into that realm? So this is a great little narrative here.
yeah, so yeah, I had finished that first piece, and then I just kind of I love horror movies, horror fiction. One of my favorite fiction writers. I'm more of a nonfiction person.
Hmm.
Definitely a
Yep.
big reader for sure. But when I do read fiction, I prefer things that disturb me, I guess. Just like when I watch movies, that's kind of my
Yeah.
favorite genre as well. Something that bothers me for a few days after I read it or watch it is what I'm attracted to be honest. Um, so
So you don't care if you sleep at night, right?
no, well, yeah, my art making usually keeps me up quite a bit. The
Yeah.
sculptures definitely did, because I had no idea how to do it. So I was kind of like just literally every night just kind of staring at the ceiling, trying to put every single piece together just in my head and just hoping that it would actually work, which it did. And that definitely to my surprise. Um, so yeah, I there's this book called The Ritual by an English fiction writer, horror fiction writer named Adam Neville, and huge fan of the book. And Netflix came out a few years ago with a movie that was based on the book. And the movie I liked just as much, if not more than the book, which is saying a lot because I'm a huge fan of that book and all of his work. And in the movie, they run into this. So it takes place in Sweden, and there's a lot of the author's really interested in religion as well. And so he kind of weaves mythology, particularly Norse mythology, into a lot of his writing. And so they come across this satanic Nordic effigy that's used as worship to in the movie, called the bastard son of Loki, which is a Nordic character, but in the movie this satanic god is in the book is hypothetical. It's made up. So I just absolutely fell in love with this sculpture that they had to make in the movie. It was absolutely amazing. So I remember just like going on YouTube and just watching that scene over and over. It was so intensely powerful. I was like, I have to do my take basically of this sculpture because for whatever reason it's speaking to me so deeply. So how could I do that but also keep it in line with the series that I'm currently working on? Because typically how it works is like I'm not going to do like off the cuff stuff. Like it has to be somehow tied in with this larger thing that I'm working on. So that, yeah, I basically I wanted to do my take on this sculpture that appeared in the movie that was based on what was described in the book, and kind of model it after sort of my own stature, I guess. In the movie, it's a female. It's the body type is much different. The way that it leans, the way that it kind of imposes itself is not. I kind of wanted to make it even larger and more imposing, and put it in a setting that was or an installation that would be strange. Like it's just not something that you would typically see. So I made the sculpture, and it sits on an Eastern style altar, and the altar sits on top of a mirror, and in front of the mirror is a prayer rug. So how I tied it in with the series was that, and I don't think most people will actually engage with the sculpture in this way, but the idea is that when you're engaging with this Nordic effigy, when you go to bow to it, pray to it, the viewer sees themselves reflected off the floor in front of it. So it's like this whole performance sort of thing. And yeah, it kept in line with my vision of the series, and you know, again, the use of the mirror and everything. But it brought, yeah, the whole thing brought me to a place of like, I never thought ever actually that I would do anything with sculpture. It just never really occurred to me. I didn't know how to do it.
So how did you figure out how to do it?
I literally came up with a whole list of things I needed, how I thought everything would work and be supported, and kind of just got all the materials that I needed and hoped that when it was put together, everything would fit into place and it would be stable and sturdy. Yeah, that's pretty much the story. So it was a really fun direction. I've got another sculpture that I'm going to do that's still going to be in line with the Nordic mythology, and I'm eventually going to move to, you know, different other ones. But I kind of, it'll be interesting to see everything once it's together, because they're very, while the conceptually everything's tied together, executionally they're very, you know, that sculpture looks nothing like a Byzantine icon. So once they're together, it'll be interesting to see how they sort of play off one another.
So is there anything else you want to say about this piece that's in the space for maybe?
I think we covered a lot of it. I think it definitely jumped out at me, especially for the title of the show, that would be a good piece to include on several levels. One just being the purpose of the piece conceptually, but also like it kind of, this, the new space that I had created for myself, like creatively before I had made it, was kind of like a space for like, maybe I could like do this, try something new. So
and that's what I loved about it. I'm really glad we've had this chance to talk about it, and I've been able to kind of find out more. And I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.